Good evening, Reds, or rather, in true Grizz style, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining Carnage and the post match show for Salzburg versus Liverpool. First things first, we'll bring in the panel. I'm joined initially by Dan Clubb. Evening, Dan, how are you?
Yes, mate, I'm all good. Can't complain. Life's treating me well. How about yourself? You good?
Yeah, I'm great, mate. Never a bad thing to sit and watch the Reds, is it?
Well,
Pre-season.
no.
Um, So we are going to be joined by somebody else who's a little bit late in joining us, but we'll crack on until that person arrives. So we might as well get to it. I've got a question for you. It's been troubling me all
Mhm.
day, and here we are, 3 days before what should be a standard season curtain raiser. And if it had been
Yeah.
Leicester, it really wouldn't have mattered, but it isn't. It's Manchester City. It's
Mhm.
taking the first team to, let's call, a very competitive, because I thought Salzburg were very competitive, a very competitive away pre-season fixture in Austria. Talk to me about your thoughts on that and whether that's a wise thing to do.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, actually. I suppose there's pros and cons to it, isn't there, in many ways? In terms of, I think it kind of borne out in the match, and I won't go into detail in that because we'll talk about that in a moment, obviously. But I think the pros are that we get a real stern test because there are levels to this game, for want of a better expression. And, us being like the top table in the Premier League, and they dominate the Austrian Bundesliga, make no mistake, but that is the Austrian
Mm-hmm.
Bundesliga. So I think if we were playing them like sort of on par, you'd expect us to be above them. But the fact that they're ahead of us in terms of where they're at in the season, I think they played one league game and two cup games, I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah,
So yeah, I suppose it kind of marries it up a little bit and it makes it more of a challenge for us, let's say, which kind of again, reflects in the result and the performance. So I see where you're coming from, and I think it is a big test to ask our lads to go and do that in terms of where they're at fitness wise. But we pride ourselves on how fit we are, I guess. So to test ourselves against that so early on is sort of testament to what we try and do, I guess.
yeah. Obviously, that's not just us. Manchester City have spent quite a lot of time playing American sides in America. Obviously, um, that's more commercial than ours, I guess. I think ours is a
Yes.
relationship fixture with Salzburg due to the transfers and the good relations. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, Red Bull, moreover, really, as opposed to just Salzburg, because we've dealt with Leipzig quite a bit now with Keita and Kanate as well. We do seem to, we're not obviously a part of that franchise, but we do seem to want to maintain good relations there. I think you're right. And obviously, this is the second time I think we've been to Austria now, so there's definitely something in that. I think it's a part of the world that suits us quite nicely, actually, in terms of what we're trying to do for these pre-season camps. We get good workouts. I think the players quite like it there by the looks of it. They get to go on the bike ride every year. So I think it's
It's
got
not
its
pre-season
positives.
without the bikes, is it? It's really not
Well,
pre-season
precisely. I,
without the
I
bike
wasn't
ride.
paying attention till I seen the lads rocking around in their helmets, to be honest. But yeah, listen, it was a very difficult game, clearly, because like we've both touched upon, they're well ahead of us in terms of where they're at. But yeah, I think it was a good one to have, especially going into the weekend. I think we needed to go up a notch in our preparations, if you like, and we definitely did that.
Just going to address this chat first of all. Regards Big Dog Grizz. Not feeling too clever tonight, guys. So stick with us, Dan and I, and hopefully one more will bring you some decent content. So if you're listening in, Grizz, get well soon. There's plenty of activity in the chat, and we miss you, pal. So see you back soon. So the team, the first half team, Dan. When it came out, I'll tell you my thoughts, and you can share yours with me.
Yeah.
I wanted to start strong,
Hmm.
get into a position where we're in front in the game, and then bring the less experienced players on. We saw this with Manchester United for me, that sometimes when you do that, when they went into the lead, they went into half time in the lead. When they came out in
Yeah.
the second half, they've played a game already this season in their league, so they're now looking at this as a scalp. And you could see how hard they were working to keep us out. Do you think we should have done it the other way around? You come talk to me about what your thoughts were on the team to start with.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one, isn't it? You're definitely right in terms of them treating it as a scalp. And I think some of the challenges, which we'll touch upon later again, I guess, but even the challenges early doors, I think their right back gets booked within like 2 or 3 minutes of the match, and you can see Klopp wasn't happy with the treatment of Carvalho in particular, but that's just probably a nod towards the fact that they're already playing competitive football, and they're obviously, like I say, more finely tuned than we are. So I think that was reflective in the opening minutes. But in terms of the team, I don't really have any issues. I find it hard to judge teams in terms of pre-season because you're going to see everyone anyway. I think we pretty much see the entire substitutes bench, apart from the 2 goalkeepers and Sepp Vandenberg today. So I really do struggle. I see what he's saying, and maybe playing against a side that have already started the competitive action, we would have been better going stronger and then kind of resting them players as the game went on. But so little is put on the result. And in many ways, the performance is still so fitness-based for me. I find it hard to criticise or have too much of an opinion on the team, to be honest.
No, I agree. 18 likes, guys. There's 121 of you in here. Come on, you know what Grizz says. Smash the like button on your way in, on your way out. If you're listening to the content and you think it's half decent, let's get those algorithms going. Let's get it to 50 likes in the next 20 minutes, please, guys, and then we'll go from there. Before we move on, I want to extend a very warm welcome to one of my best friends on social media, absolutely top guy. Been a long time since we've chatted about Liverpool. Rack, how are you, mate?
I'm good, Steve. Nice to chat after a while. What's up, Dan? Hope you're okay, mate. Yeah, look, it's been a while. It's been a while, and yeah, you know, I've had a bit of a summer off after all the football of last season. I was a bit footballed out, to be honest, and so I haven't really been, you know, going on Spaces too much. Even Twitter, just I've kind of taken a step back, and but it's actually, I think it's been a good thing. I didn't really have any expectations of the match today, but I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed watching it. So yeah, good to do that. Good to watch the game. Good to be back chatting. Good to be with you guys.
So I'll get your thoughts. I asked Dan at the outset, 3 days before what has now become a little bit of a psychological opener to the season against City in the Charity Shield. Was it sensible to be playing almost the first team 3 days before away in Austria? It's not a criticism. I just want to, guys in the chat, if you're hearing this question, I'd like to know your thoughts too. But just tell me what you think. Do you think that was the best planning? Is that something we should have done, or should we have done the obligatory trip to Tranmere Rovers?
You know, it's one of those things that Klopp sees the players every day. He looks at the squad as a collective every day in training, and you know, I think you just have to kind of let him make the choice. He's got all the information. The team, the club have all the information, and if they think it's best to have them all playing a few minutes today. I mean, it's only the proper, probably what most people consider the first team was only on for about 30 minutes or so, wasn't it? So just a little bit of a run out a few days before. I think it's fine. And I thought they played well. Obviously didn't score, but in terms of all the approach play and stuff, it was exciting stuff. I quite enjoyed it.
I have to say I agree with that comment. Either of you two disagree? Rack, I have a feeling that we should have gotten to a position where we won the game and then made the changes. I was just saying to Dan, I think because they've already played a game this season, they approached that game and prepared for that game as though it was a genuine fixture. And I think once they got in front, it became an opportunity to get a bit of a scalp. It will do their forthcoming games and their morale no harm at all. I think I would have preferred to see us start strong and water it down. What's your thoughts? Dan's already answered this, so I'll just come to you on that one again, please, Rack.
As I said, I just can't. It's a bit of a boring answer, and maybe it's a kind of a politically correct one as well. But I'll let Klopp make those decisions, and whatever he decides is right is right. Ultimately, it's a friendly. It's kind of a game where you can hone some skills, get back a bit of sharpness. Obviously, the sharpness wasn't necessarily there right in front of goal, but we created so much, and everything apart from that final pass into the back of the net was there. So, you know, I don't mind. You know, most important things, they got run out and they looked good.
So first half, Dan, go through the Liverpool players. You're a bit like me. You're a bit analytical. You look at these players. You might have singled out one or two for a bit of extra player cam from Dan Club style analysis. So I guess I kind of want to hear from you who you thought stood out, who you thought, okay, I expected a bit more. I'm not going to ask you for disappointments because it's pre-season. You don't really get them. It's a run out, but I know there's his face. There's obviously one because of your expression on your face there. Well, I just like to know who's ticked the box for you and who left you wanting a little bit more. That's probably a fair way to put that.
That's a much more, to use that term again, politically correct way of putting it. I'd say disappointment might have been harsh. Tick the box is a nice expression as well, because I've got a list of ticks in front of me. Isaac Mabaya, I was really impressed with. Really impressed with. And he's actually thrown up a few questions for me, but just on his performance, he kind of epitomised everything we'd like to see from our right backs. Yeah, Mabaya, there you go. I thought he was outstanding. 17 years old, not seen a great deal of him, truth be told. But brilliant, really impressive. Composed on the ball, driving forwards, willing to get forwards, made things happen as well when he did get on the attack. So a genuine talent there, and it'd be interesting to see where the future lies there, because he looked ready to play some sort of role to me. Now, I'm not suggesting he's going to get anywhere near Trent, but it does make the Calvin Ramsey transfer slightly more intriguing, I guess. We haven't seen Ramsey yet for obvious reasons because of his injuries, but with someone that impressive who's about 12 months younger than him, I wonder if there's a loan move in store maybe there for Mabaya, because he looked ready to play first team football, like I say, somewhere to me, based on what I've seen tonight. I thought against a team that we've already mentioned that are already in full swing when it comes to their competitive action. So brilliant performance. Carvalho again, I thought shown glimpses of what he has to offer. I think he's been our standout for our pre-season, actually, to be honest, Carvalho. Didn't really know entirely what to expect from him, coming from Fulham, playing in a different role and obviously a different side. But again, really good outing from him. Harvey Elliott was good. Bajcetic tonight, I wasn't as enamoured with. I thought he showed decent bits of composure. Yeah, he does, by the way. Thought he showed decent bits of composure and a little bit of class, but slightly down on what I seen last week. I was over the moon with him last week, and I wasn't sure tonight. And as for room for improvement, I don't want to do it, but Joe Gomez, again, I've made major sympathy with Joe Gomez because I think he hasn't had the football that he needs to get himself back into any sort of rhythm. That is quite clearly still the case. But the things we saw from him in his performances last season, although they were fleeting, that decision-making, that little lack of understanding of what was going on in the game, that was evident again, I thought, this evening. That pass he played into Bajcetic's feet, and he gets caught on it straight away because there's two men on him. That's not the kid's fault. It almost looks bad on him because he's the one that ends up losing possession. But Joe Gomez should never give him the ball in there. And I don't want to get too critical because, like you've already said, A, it's a pre-season friendly, and B, we love all these players equally. But somebody's just touched on it there in the chat. Joe Gomez is fourth in the pecking order. Now, he'll have aspirations of not being fourth in the pecking order. He needs to improve. He needs to improve. That's going to be the case.
Okay. Rack, similar sort of question to you. Who are you looking forward to seeing? Carvalho is a cheat code answer, by the way, because everybody's looking forward to Carvalho playing. I thought today, at times, he made the wrong decision on the ball, which is fine. He's young and he's going to learn, and he'll take a few bollockings from the senior players with regards to that, and that's okay. What were your thoughts on the first half? Who sort of caught your eye for good, bad, or indifferent reasons?
Look, the players I was keen and interested to see, because I think they're ready to make a contribution in the first team from what I've seen so far, were Carvalho and Elliott. Carvalho, the thing that I like about him, he's always, when he's receiving the ball, he's always on the half turn. He's ready to take that touch and move forward quickly rather than, take a touch, look, and then face up the play a little bit. And the fact that he's got that speed of thought and presence, I think that bodes really well for him. And Elliott, we all know how well he started last season, and it was harsh that it was cut short through injury, and he didn't really get a chance to have the potential impact that he could have. And yeah, I've been impressed with what I've seen from him this pre-season. And look, it wouldn't surprise me if come the game against Fulham, it wouldn't surprise me if Elliott is in the starting lineup. Other than those two, look, Núñez, he's going to score goals. He's definitely going to score goals. Sometimes he looks a little bit ungainly, but ultimately that's by the by. Ultimately what matters is what he can deliver and what he can contribute to the team. So I don't think there's going to be any issues there. He looked a little bit kind of a little bit rough around the edges. And yeah, I've never really liked the Gomez-Khanate partnership. I've always felt that in a way it's a testament to Van Dijk, because whoever you put next to Van Dijk, they just look super comfortable. And as soon as Van Dijk's not there, it becomes a bit more problematic. And it's happened when Matip has linked up with the two of them as well a few times last season. So yeah, I didn't, for the goal, and not just the goal, there was a few other moments in the first half where they didn't really look that coherent. But also it's pre-season; they haven't played that well that much with each other. So I don't want to be too critical.
I think we've got to be realistic, Rack, without being critical. I thought, and I said this quite a lot last season, I thought Khanate tries to engage the ball too far up the pitch. He certainly did for the goal. Yeah. Once they isolate him and do the give and go around him, and Joe Gomez is not reading the room very well in terms of where he should be, I think that's a really soft goal to give away when you basically play a give and go in between your two centre halves. There's not a lot of communication there in terms of one goes and one drops. We're too close to each other. It kind of reminded me a little bit of when you put Kabak and Phillips together, and one didn't know which one was to go and press the ball, and one didn't know which one was to look in behind him and sweep and pick up the bits and pieces. Because you only have one ball winner in a centre-back partnership, and then you have someone like, unless it's dominantly coming down one side. I just thought they sold themselves really badly for the goal. Dan, has that sort of played into Klopp's thinking now with regards to, is it Khanate or is it Matip? Because there's been a swell in Liverpool fans on social media to say, actually, boys, I think Kanate's in the box seat for the starting berth alongside Van Dijk. Tonight was a stark reminder that he's 22 years old. He's still got an awful lot to learn. Yeah. Where are you in regards to that right now, having watched that tonight, knowing that Saturday's Manchester City and we were killed by angles tonight by two players? They'll have 6 trying that. So
they will do.
Yeah. Where are you with that? What's your thoughts?
It's an interesting one. And I think when it all boils down to it, I would probably be Matip. Because for everything you touched upon there, and people have touched upon it in the chat as well, in terms of neither Gomez or Khanate are that real leader. And I suppose, like you said earlier, Steve, you put any of these 3 centre-half next to Virgil van Dijk, they all go up tenfold anyway. So it's kind of, he's a cheat code in terms of that, Van Dijk, in terms of he could make me look half decent alongside him as centre-half.
Hang on a minute. Don't go there. Don't go there.
I think with the Khanate Matip, I think it's a really difficult one to call, because based on tonight, you would go Matip, wouldn't you? Just because we all know how classy he is and everything he's got. But then we've seen Khanate alongside Van Dijk look equally as impressive. So it's a really difficult call. I think you're right. He's definitely still got things to learn. And they were kind of borne out in the way it went for him this evening. But I just think we've got a superstar on our hands in him. And I think we threw him into sort of the biggest occasions last season, the Man City games being the case in points, and obviously away in the Champions League and stuff like that. So it wouldn't shock me at all if it was Khanate on Saturday. I don't think it's going to be Joe Gomez. I don't think he's quite forced himself into that conversation yet, unfortunately, in many ways. But yeah, I think Khanate is still definitely there or thereabouts, and it is still a 50-50 call with them two. But you're right in what you say. There was definitely no communication between the two of them, and that probably does boil down to a leadership thing and maybe a confidence thing with Joe Gomez. I think Joe Gomez 18 months ago would sort of take a grip of that situation and would be the leader amongst them two. But he's just not got the confidence. He hasn't got the game time under his belt to do it. And we've seen that in the Leicester game in the Carabao Cup when he played alongside Cometio. Like, that was all over the place as well. We're getting pulled apart for 45 minutes. And I don't know whether that was Gomez not being ready to lead a partnership because he hasn't played enough football, or whether it was because him and Cometio, Cometio's a young lad, never played much before. I don't know. It's a difficult one, but Gomez just signed a new contract and it needs to start happening for him again.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
It's a shame, really, because that season where he played consistently at the back with Van Dijk, I actually preferred the Van Dijk Gomez partnership to the Van Dijk Matic partnership, just because
100%.
It allowed us to play that a little bit higher up. He obviously had the great recovery pace, and he I don't want to put a down on things, but say he was the future, and now you could argue Khanate is the future, and he's, I don't want to say yesterday's man, but something along those kind of lines. Yeah. And he's 25 now. I think when Virgil joined us, he was 26, and they should be able to make a judgment now to see whether they think he's capable of reaching not necessarily Virgil's levels, because those levels are difficult to reach for anybody. But is he capable of playing as a centre back for Liverpool in the next 6, 7, 8 years? And that question is yet to be answered, I think.
I find that interesting because we alluded to it before, where Gomez really wasn't ready for the give and go that bypassed Khanate.
Yeah,
he found himself facing in the wrong direction, to be fair. Whilst he's quick, it was too close to his goal for him to make an adjustment and get a challenge in. And the chance that Fernando missed, where he's only got to put the ball between the white post and he scores, both of them got caught out a little bit. And this is not a witch hunt, those of you in the chat. It's not a witch hunt. I'm really interested to know what people think about it, because it's a fundamental part of our team, because we'll play with a high back line again this season, because we're exponents of VAR and using that tactic. And I just want to understand what people's thoughts are, because I've got to be honest with you. I think I had Khanate in the box seat, and I've watched that tonight on 2 or 3 occasions, and I've thought that's lack of experience. It's not poor ability or levels or anything to do with that. It's kind of reading the game, which only comes with time on the pitch. And Rack, you were absolutely spot on. You play with Van Dijk, and you just said it too, Dan. You suddenly become world class yourself, because he's giving you information all the time, telling you how far away, where to be, why did you do that? You shouldn't be there. You should be here. This is the impact this guy's had on the football club. And whilst we kind of accept his 9 out of 10 performances every week now without really waxing lyrical about it, because it's become the norm, we sleep on him a little bit, don't we, Dan?
Yeah, we do. And you're right, we definitely shouldn't do, because he is phenomenal. Not in terms of just what he does defensively, but what he brings to those around him. You could bring the fullbacks into that equation as well. The fullbacks were never quite the same when he was injured. We were never quite the same as the football side, quite frankly. But Robertson in particular definitely lost something without Van Dijk alongside him. Let's not take that for granted. But I think the Khanate point's a really interesting one from you, Steen. You're probably right, but I think it's something we've seen in the early part of his game last season, before he truly took off after Christmas. Some of his performances were kind of brilliant, and then he'd let himself down, for want of a better expression, in terms of he'd be caught out of position, or he'd play somebody on side. He wouldn't quite do the things we all love from Virgil van Dijk. So I'm not overly concerned by what we've seen from him tonight. He might just be getting back up to speed. And he might be one of them players that it takes a little bit longer to do that with. So his performance doesn't really worry me. And I hate going back to him because I've done it a million times, but it is starting to look like a witch hunt from my perspective. But Rackstead, right on Joe Gomez, he was absolutely incredible the year we won the league. Phenomenal. And I didn't see any future of this football club without him, quite frankly, and I still don't. And the comments said, right, he probably will get there, and I, for one, really hope he does. I still think there's a future for Gomez and Khanate to be our central defensive partnership. I don't think there's any doubt about that. My only immediate concern is that it's not quite happened for him for an entire season last year, and I don't see where he gets the game time for it to really click into place moving forwards. I don't worry because I think we're in safe hands regardless of what happens. But I just think Joe Gomez, given the fact he has just signed that fresh contract, I just think something needs to click, and it needs to click fast. And I don't know where it's going to come from.
No, they're good shouts. And just before you come to this, Rack, there's 211 people in here now. So first of all, massive respect to all you guys who've turned up at 10:30 at night to watch this. Really, I'm appreciative of that. We're 20 likes away from 100. Can you get me there, please, in the next 5 minutes? That would be cool. And our master Grizz will be delighted. So please go and hit the like button. Sorry, Rack, I cut you off midstream there, mate. What were you going to say?
Well, I'm not sure. I was just trying to remember when Matip's contract is up for renewal.
Is it not this summer, but the following one?
24, I think. Yeah, I think you're right.
24. Okay, fine. So, I mean, that I'd be surprised if we necessarily look to renew that. So, maybe next summer, if we want to try and get some money for him, or the summer after, is at the latest. That's going to be a point where we'll have a better idea. But obviously, at that point, Gomez is like 26, 27, and Khanate is 25-ish. So yeah, I was just wondering whether that might have some kind of influence as well.
Yeah, it's good, right? Okay, so I think we've talked the back two to death. We probably talked them out of the team. It'll probably be Fabinho and Van Dijk if we carry on, won't it? So let's not go there. I think
it's not me, Steve. We're all right.
Well, you're a sportsman, Dan. I'm sure you'll be fine. I think the thing to say, guys, just summarising this, is we watch Liverpool from a completely different perspective than we watch any other club, because we watch it through a fan's eyes rather than impartial. So when things go wrong, we're all over it. And we look at it and think, wow, I don't like that. And we talk about it. But I think it's fair to say that if we let Gomez go to Villa, for instance, for 25 million in the summer, which was the sort of figure that was being bandied around, you can't get a replacement for that kind of money, of that ability. You really can't. You'd have to spend £40 million for Tyrone Mings, and I wouldn't want him anywhere near Liverpool Football Club. So this is, yeah, exactly right, Rack. So this is the type of thing that you'll be dealing with. So a bit of perspective. His injury was probably one of the worst, and I keep saying this, one of the worst injuries you could have. Basically, he took his skin away. He could have lifted up his kneecap, picked it up, walked off with it. That's how bad it was. Not everybody comes back in the same way that Van Dijk did. There's the psychological hump to get over as well. Van Dijk's had 40 games to get across that. Joe Gomez hasn't. And I've talked to you about this before, Dan. Joe Gomez needs 6, 8, 9 games to get into his stride.
100%.
Right now, Joe Gomez isn't going to get 6, 8, 9 games to get into his stride, because he's behind the other two that play on that right-hand side. So it's a watch and see, isn't it, boys? It's a let's wait and see what happens with him. But someone said before, he'll get there, he's capable. That's absolutely spot on. He is capable. And I do like him. And I agree with you, Rack. In the year we won the league, he was immense. Let's hope he gets back some of that form, because he's an even bigger asset to the squad than he is currently in that form. So that's really good. Rack, midfield-wise, thoughts on the midfield? Across the match today, not just the first half. Let's look at the whole match when we switched it around and made the changes. Who caught your eye? And what do you think is going to be the midfield for the City game on Saturday?
I thought Fabinho, when he came on, was everywhere. I mean, he looked like he really had the bit between his teeth. I thought he was immense. So the fact that he looks like he's going to be sharp and ready to be at top level for the start of the season, I think that bodes well. Naby had moments. He had some good moments in the first half, and some not so good moments. A few times he lost the ball and could have done better with it. But I think he's going to be there or thereabouts. Thiago again had some nice touches. It was a little bit of a chaotic game in the second half, because obviously we were kind of camped in their half, and although it was exciting, perhaps it wasn't a real technician's game. So we perhaps didn't get a chance to see the best of Thiago, but there were some nice touches. And in general, I thought we weren't quite at the level that I expect us to be. But yeah, as I said, sometimes midfield, I think it's maybe takes a bit of time to get used to. And the first half was also a very we're probably never going to see that starting lineup again unless it's Carabao Cup or something like that, opening round against Shrewsbury or something. But nothing to write home about, but nothing to complain too much about either. I don't think.
Rack, well, I've got you. This is really, really interesting. I'm just going to put something up and then I'm going to go back to it and get you to cover this one. So that's standard housekeeping. Please like and subscribe and support the channel. 98 likes, 226 people in here. I've got to ask you what 55% of you are doing if you're not hitting the like button. Come on, guys, let's get them likes up, please. Rack, can you take that one for me, mate? Because this is an interesting comment that keeps coming up in the chat. I don't know what Nat Phillips did wrong, to be honest. Did he do anything wrong, or is he just a victim of circumstance?
It's like Nat Phillips and sorry, it's a bit disrespectful. I forgot his name now, but what's his name?
Reece Williams.
Reece Williams. They haven't done anything wrong. And they were heroes. The season that they helped us get Champions League when it looked dead and buried. We couldn't put a centre-back partnership together for love nor money. And they came in and did exceptionally well when we got to the Champions League season before last. But Nat Phillips just doesn't have all the attributes that we need and isn't at the required level. So the best thing we can do as a club is find him, and he hopefully will be able to find himself a club where he can play minutes, play games, and progress his future. He unfortunately is quite a bit behind even Gomez. I think you need to, unless you've got elite reading of the game. I think you need pace to play in this Liverpool centre back lineup, and I think Matip. Oh, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. And even though Matip hasn't got lightning pace, he's a decent reader of the ball. He gives you other attributes. I don't think Phillips has many outstanding attributes, and that's no slight on him. He's a good player. I hope he has a good career as a professional, but it's not going to be with Liverpool.
No, fair enough. What about Dan? I want you to cover off the Naby Keita debate. Naby's getting a bit of stick in the chat tonight. I'm going to find. There you go. Why don't you have a look at that one? Whilst we're in the midfield, buddy, can you just have a read of that and give me your thoughts on Naby Keita tonight?
I mean, it's quite difficult to argue with any of them points, if truth be told. And I think Rack kind of summed it up in terms of the way he assessed his performance this evening, in terms of some good moments, but then some sloppy moments whereby he gives it away too cheaply. And I think that kind of is him in a nutshell in many senses. A lot of his performances tend to be like that. It's very rare. One that sort of sticks in my mind is that same Leicester Carabao Cup game when he came on at half-time and completely changed the whole outlook of the match. And he was phenomenal from start to finish for that 45 minutes. And it's not very often that's the case with Naby Keita. It's too many of his performances, for me, are blighted by one thing here and there. And I suppose when you're a side like us that are looking to achieve nigh on perfection chasing Manchester City, I'm not sure you can afford to have Naby Keita in the side the whole time, which is, I suppose, relatively damning, actually, if you like. But personally, I'm a big Naby Keita fan in terms of what he can offer. Somewhat he says what type of player he is, and he's a ball-carrying midfielder for me who doesn't, like Thiago picks apart defensive with his passes and his vision. Naby Keita does it with his ability to go past the player and drop a shoulder and make things happen in that way. So I think, Rack touched on Nat Phillips not having all the attributes. I think Naby Keita does have all the attributes to be a standout player in this Liverpool side for Jurgen Klopp. He can press really well. His ball carrying, I've already mentioned, is outstanding. His range of passing is definitely there. And I think he can contribute more goals, and we started to see that last year slightly. I think his main issue, is his injuries, which probably sort of blends into the fact he isn't consistent enough for us. Now, those two probably marry up in the fact that his injuries mean he doesn't play enough football, similar to Joe Gomez and so on and so on. But I in terms of selling him, he's out of contract next year, I believe, isn't he? So
yeah, he's playing for a new contract now.
Yeah,
That's the
there is a
question,
situation there. There is a situation there, isn't there? Let's not make no bones about it. Like probably needs, unless it happens before the start of the season, he probably needs a good 6 months, I'd say, injury free and playing a lot of football. Otherwise, January could come quickly for him. Let's say. But he's definitely not a player that's nailed on in this Liverpool squad. And I think the point that the chat make is a good one on him, because after 4 years now he's been with us, we should be looking at a player that's established himself, and he hasn't done it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to close on the Naby Keita thing on my little points, and I've left MK's comments up there. It does feel like it's a little bit kind of the mood of the day type of scenario. But here's how I see it, MK. We spent £57 million on a player that tore the Bundesliga to pieces with his ability to pick up the ball and run at people, ask questions, play off either hip, drive at people, commit people, and play other people in. That player's never really turned up at Liverpool. The Premier League's very different. The physical rigours of the Premier League is very different. He's had some difficulty adjusting to that. His fitness is an issue. The question, I think, on everybody's lips and everybody's mind is, how long can we keep saying we'll see the Naby from Leipzig next week or next month? The guy's playing for a contract. He's in the sort of shakedown for a new contract. So there's two schools of thought here. Do we do 2 or 3 midfielders next season and let his contract run out and see what happens? Because Ox will go more than likely at the end of his contract rather than now, because he's doing he's channeling his inner Origi and being injured throughout the transfer window, so no one's interested in him, so he gets to stay for 6 months longer at least. So with regards to that, I think he's got, like you said, Dan, he needs 6 months, loads of games, loads of not being injured, so he can really show us what he's capable of. He presses really well. The goal against Atletico Madrid is an example of his technical ability. The first half performance against Real Madrid is an example of how he can completely forget the game plan and becomes the most frustrated man on the planet. That's a balanced view of a player, I think, that we don't know what to do with in terms of his contract.
Just to say on that, Steve, that the fact we don't know what to do with his contract and we don't quite know what he is as a player kind of sums him up. I mean, we should know that by now, and that's arguably his biggest issue. Like, we've just mentioned a few of his attributes there, but I think what he's not been allowed to do since coming to the Premier League and playing for Liverpool is, I'm not sure the player that we signed, I'm not sure Klopp's ever let him be that. And that's not a criticism of Klopp, but our system demands different things. And that's the way we play. And Klopp, we've seen it with Gini Wijnaldum. Look at Gini Wijnaldum for Holland. This free-scoring, attack-minded midfielder. Never seen that for Liverpool. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just because we play a different way. And I wonder whether the same can be said about Naby Keita and Leipzig and us potentially.
Yeah, he's got all the attributes. And how many times have we sat here and said this after games, and broken down his game? He can pass sometimes. He can beat players sometimes. He can break up play and win the ball back. Sometimes he's got a great engine on him. But of all the transfers that we've done in the kind of Edwards Klopp era, I think that's one that hasn't landed where we thought, especially. And maybe it's a little bit unfair to say, because obviously we were very eager to see him contribute, and we waited a year for him to get there, and maybe that didn't necessarily help either. But at some point, you've got to step up and take it to the next level, and we haven't really seen that. It's a difficult one because also in terms of value, I think it makes sense to extend his contract and then maybe look at selling him next year or the year after, because someone will buy him, and he'll probably go somewhere, maybe Italy or back to Germany somewhere or somewhere like, and will do well and will be highly touted again. But the idea of a £50 million player walking out for free, I think he's probably worth £30-ish million, and to let £30 million player walk out the door for free would be a bit tricky. I'd be surprised if the club let that happen.
So that's a really good point. I'm glad you made that. So I'm going to come to you, Dan, with a question, and I would like you to answer the same question, Rack. If you're going to give him a new contract, it's unlikely he accepts a new contract on the same terms or lesser terms. He's going to want more money. That's how football contracts work.
Of course,
and given his age, probably looking at doing that. Is there justification, Dan, to do that? And this isn't a digging out Naby Keita thing. There are a couple of really salient points to talk about from the fixture tonight about certain people's performances. And I do watch Naby Keita with interest because I'm trying to understand what we've got. And it's a conundrum for me and I can't figure it out. So, and that's unusual for me because I've got reasonable appreciation of the game. So I'm trying to understand who and what he is and what he could become.
No, you're right,
Both of you have made the point, and the chat have made the point that Leipzig, Naby Keita, there's no place for that in the Premier League. There's no place for that in Liverpool's system as such. That's a really good point. Where do you stand on it, Dan? Do you give him a nominal pay increase and a 2-year extension? What do you do?
It is a genuinely difficult one, and my only sort of point for doing that and giving him that pay increase and giving him a new contract is, like Rack touched upon, is to protect his value. And to say we can't let a 30, 40, 50 million pound footballer walk away for free, which in my eyes we did with Gini Wijnaldum. But is that enough? I'm not entirely sure that's enough. Like, you've got to almost take it on a case-by-case point. And if Naby Keita isn't doing it, that's why I said earlier, if he's not playing enough and he's not performing to the level required for these first 6 months, we kind of have to cut ties and just say, he's not good enough. It's not happened. We can't give him a new contract. We can't give him a pay rise, which you will demand. You're dead right, see. There's no way he's accepting the same terms. It just doesn't happen. So I think he is playing for a new contract. But as things stand right now, I wouldn't be giving him one. I wouldn't be giving him that pay rise. I think the only justification for doing so is the fact that as a club, we're looking to save that little bit of that asset protection, like I say. And that's not enough. For me, let him go, let Ox go, like you say, and go and get 2 different ones. I know it sounds dead easy and it's really not, but I think that's where I'm at. I don't think I'd be giving Keita a contract just for the sake of it. He has to have earned it, and I'm not entirely sure he has right now.
Rack, do you feel any differently? And again, I must point out to those in the chat, let's not have a sort of pummel Naby session. This is a genuine question because this is a £60 million investment plus wages, and we're kind of at a, sorry to interrupt you, Rack, we're kind of at a crossroads in his career now, and I'm just interested to see what you guys think. So, Rack, what's your thoughts on what Dan and I have said?
Well, look, I mean, I think both you guys have got it bang on. Does he deserve? He certainly doesn't deserve a massive wage increase, and preserving his value. Look, let's see how he does this season. But preserving his value is the only rational reason I can give for giving him a new contract. Because otherwise, if he had 2 years left and we didn't necessarily need him, and there was a ready-made replacement available somewhere else, I'd seriously be considering selling him. But I'm not sure whether now is the right, as in this summer, is the right time to be looking to sell him. And if that's not the case, like I said, I wouldn't want to let him walk out the door for free. So yeah, a nominal pay increase. I don't know what he's on now. Say, for example, he's on 100 grand a week. Maybe give him a 2-year extension. So we've got a 3-year contract, and put him on 120 or 100, maybe something like that.
I think he's either on 120 or 140.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay. All right. Well,
yeah.
Again, it's a tough one. But there will be takers out there for him at a reasonable fee. You know, somewhere between 30 and 40 million. I think there would be people interested. Maybe in Germany at the lower end of that, because he's still relatively young. I think he's mid-20s at the moment or something like that. So, but there's no clear-cut answer. I don't think, if you look at it in a balanced way. So different people have different opinions on it, and I don't think that it's clear-cut one way or the other.
Cool.
120's
so
on.
Back to the game.
You're right. 120's on.
Yeah, 120. Yeah. Back to the game. Hot topic at the moment, and I'm not getting into the stupid compilations that are being run on Twitter at the moment, because that's rival fans desperate for our brilliant transfer model to trip over, because they go and spend silly money on players. It doesn't work. Darwin Núñez, Rack, thoughts on Darwin Núñez tonight?
A bit hit and miss. Obviously, he wasn't playing with the kind of what would be regarded as the proper first team squad. Some of those chances in the second half, I would be surprised if he didn't put some of them away. But he had a chance or two in the first half as well, and it didn't quite go perfectly for him. But he's going to score goals. I think any striker will score goals in our system. We're going to create so much. If he's not getting over 15 goals next season, I'll be very disappointed. I don't have any doubts. We're an attacking machine, and he's gonna make a massive contribution next season.
Dan, your thoughts on Núñez tonight, and some of the comments in the chat, and what Dan has said. Sorry, Rack has said. I'll kind of go with that. What's your take on Núñez's performance tonight?
Yeah, similar really, I suppose. His movement was good. He got himself into good positions. It looks a little bit not quite up to full speed yet, let's just say. And his sharpness isn't quite there. I think he's got genuine striker's instinct, hasn't he? And he's not quite putting that together yet. I think he's quite clearly still learning a new system, isn't he? We've seen that from the training clips we've probably all watched. And it is different. We do play a different way to Benfica. Let's not forget that. So it might take him a little bit longer. How many players have we seen come in under Klopp, and it takes a while for them to really get going? So he might fall into that category. But I think he's got everything, hasn't he? We've seen it before. We've seen it tonight. The fact he's getting into these positions and getting himself in front of opportunities, even if he's not quite putting them away like he did the other night for a while. Clips the bar with an effort as well. Just needs to learn a little bit. And I think he will. He's a natural goal scorer, in my opinion. He's just one of them players who will find ways of scoring goals. I've got no issues with that whatsoever. The compilations are absolutely hysterical on Twitter. They're fine. No issue with them. But yeah, going to be a star, I think. The one thing I would say is I'm not entirely sure. It's a difficult one, but I don't know whether we're quite run with him just yet from the outset. It'd be interesting to see what we do on Saturday with him. Because I'm not quite sure. Playing against somebody of City's calibre especially, I don't know if he's quite ready to rock and roll for that game yet for us, but we'll see. His movement for the chance that does hit the bar, I feel like he could probably move better in that instance. He probably needs to go away as opposed to go towards the ball with Mbaya. But yeah, good player. It's going to happen. No issues.
Yeah, I thought it's very difficult for him. And I think quite a lot of the comments that are being made in and around our fan base is he's got to learn to play with us. That's a two-way street for me. I think we've got to learn to play with him as well. We've not had an orthodox number 9 for a number of years now. He will do things differently. He will tell you where he wants the ball. We've got to learn to put it there. There's a coming together of minds that's required here. So we need to learn how to get the best out of him. And he needs to learn how to play within our system to a degree, because he's very different to what we've had. Just why I've got I've got you here. Why do we think both Manchester City and Liverpool have gone out and bought orthodox number 9s, guys? Why do you think there's been that change in both the mentality of Pep and Klopp? Are we seeing a reworking of tactics in football?
Yeah, I think you have to be honest. I think there needs to be that. It kind of refreshes itself every now and then. We've kind of gone, like, obviously the false nine's been a thing for years, and we kind of were part of that. Regardless of what people say about Pep and City manufacturing that, that's simply not true. Bobby Firmino's been the archetypal false 9 rather for a long time. And Darwin Núñez will run differently and he will move differently, and as will Erling Haaland for City. And I think it is just a reworking of tactics, but I think we're going to see a lot more expected of those 9s than what previous 9s, your Alan Shearers of years gone by. They were out-and-out strikers. I think these will act slightly differently in terms of they'll link up with the wingers, and the two either side of them a hell of a lot more. And I think they've both, Haaland and Núñez, they've both got the ability to do that, whilst also having that killer instinct for the goal that somebody else just mentioned there. So it's going to be really fascinating to watch both, I think. Obviously, Núñez in particular from our perspective, but I don't know. It's an interesting one. It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. And I wonder if we will see a shift in formation from us in terms of getting a 10 involved as well, because I think he's crying out for a 10 in behind him.
We've got a feeling, Grizz and I speak about this quite a lot. We've got a feeling we'll see a bit more of the 4-2-4, because I really like that when we're chasing games. And we might see Carvalho play on that left-hand side, but 15 yards further forward than where we've seen Thiago play. So he almost becomes an 8-10 hybrid. rather than going with a 4-2-3-1 with a genuine number 10 behind him, because we
not
don't
in a
really have a
10.
number 10
No,
as such.
okay.
Yeah,
Because he likes to come off the left. I can see
go
slight similarities with a young Coutinho in Carvalho's
massively.
game where, but he's got a bit more. I've seen him win the ball back when he's lost it, and we didn't see Coutinho do that, which is really pleasing. Rack, I did have a specific question for you, and I'll come to it now.
Go, mate.
So Liverpool have welcomed in Núñez, and Manchester City have welcomed in Haaland. Which team takes longer to accommodate those players into their style, and why do you think that would be? I've got my thoughts. I'll get yours too, and then we'll have a chat about that.
It's a tough one, because we actually with Jota last season, we actually played with he wasn't really a false nine. I think he tried to copy the Bobby playbook to some extent, but he was definitely playing him more as a striker than as a false nine. And so you could argue maybe we've been doing that a little bit longer, although slightly differently. It's a tough one. I think ultimately, both will turn out to be successes. I think we both dominate play, not just in terms of possession, but territorially. So we play the game so much in the opposition's final third that having a more conventional striker to occupy defenders, and then maybe, like you say, a Carvalho or someone coming from deep from midfield, and joining up and playing as a front four on occasion, and then sometimes dropping back into a 4-3-3 when out of possession, or making later runs from central midfield. I can see that as an effective way of playing and creating chances and creating opportunities. So it does make sense. There's always a chance it could fall flat on its face, and we'll be back to square one, both of us. But Klopp has always, ever since he's come in, every year he's tried to make a little change, little tweaks tactically. And Pep is obviously he's a genius football tactician. So I'd expect nothing less from him, and this may just be the next evolution of we all know formations on a piece of paper matter little. Ultimately, it's the positions and the roles that people have when they're on the pitch that matter. So I'm sure both teams and both clubs will make it work one way or the other.
Okay, before I come to you, Dan, we're on the precipice of 150 likes from 274 people. That will make me really happy if we can get to 150, guys. Please do it for us. Show your appreciation for these two young men who've joined me tonight to talk Liverpool. Dan, same question to you, same scenario to you. Who adjusts the quickest and why?
I honestly believe we do. I think Rack's right in terms of we both have had our systems, and Klopp's definitely tried to make these little tactical tweaks along the way that keep us one step ahead and to keep opponents guessing, because there's no point becoming predictable. And I think that's actually been our downfall in certain periods, whereby we struggle to break teams down, the low block argument being probably the pressing one in that. But I believe we do, because I don't think we're quite as methodical as City. I think City are truly a very methodical side, and it kind of all works perfectly. And it's, in many ways, it's a credit to Guardiola that he's managed to do that, but it also can be their downfall when they bring in someone who is so different in Haaland. Like they haven't had anyone like him. Like, we can all talk about Gabriel Jesus and Raheem Sterling playing the false nine, but they're wingers essentially playing through the middle. Haaland is an out-and-out striker. Like Rack said, right, we've had Jota, whose primary instinct and his primary ambition in playing football is to score goals. Like, Roberto Firmino is slightly different in terms of the fact he's not that bothered about his numbers. He'll prioritise those around him. So there is an adjustment to be made there for us, no doubt about it. And I actually think, I don't want to use the word problem, but the most intriguing part of this adjustment with us and Núñez, I think the likes of Trent, Robertson, Thiago, those players are going to absolutely love having him, because they're going to work with him seamlessly. I don't think there's any issues there whatsoever. And the same with Luis Diaz. I think Luis Diaz will feed Núñez till the cows come home, no problems. The Salah and Núñez conundrum is the most intriguing one for me, because Salah quite clearly has been our superstar now for some time, and he gets all the goals and gets bags of assists, and incredible. How he links up with Nunez is going to be so important, like pivotal to what goes on. And he's linked up with big players really well in the past. Dzeko at Rome in particular springs to mind. So how him and Nunez interact is key to how this season goes for us. And there's a good chance it works brilliantly and we take the league by storm and away we go. But I have my concerns about that. Let's just say that, because Salah, as much as we all love him, and he is a phenomenal goal scorer, does have his moments whereby you wish he'd have passed it. Now, that hasn't mattered when it's been Firmino, because Firmino doesn't care. Firmino will give the ball to Salah as opposed to scoring himself. I don't know if Nunez and Salah are quite going to strike up that same relationship. So that's the big one for me. But in terms of how they fit in, I think we're ahead of the game compared to City because we've got that flexibility already built in within us.
My view on this is, and I've provoked conversations on this loads of times, is that because City's kind of death by 1,000 cuts, they'll get you one way or another by recycling the ball and creating angles. To throw gangly's not the right word, but to throw an awkward, talented number 9 into the mix, because he is a bit awkward to look at sometimes, and that's not knocking him. Guy's superstar. That has a bigger impact on the fluidity of City's game than Darwin Nunez does playing for Liverpool for me. So my opinion would be that there's more work for City to do. They just sold 2 of their wider players with influence. Raheem Sterling is a really good signing for Chelsea in regard that, in regard that it gives them something they haven't had before. But what it does moreover is it actually weakens Manchester City. He's a superstar for them, Sterling was, and I know he's keen to go back to London because he moved out of London when he was 15 to come to Liverpool, and it's been a long time. I just think City have got a much harder job to integrate. We've got a super chat. Thank you very much for that. We'll go through that now. Put it back on. I was a bit disappointed we didn't see Nunez play in the second half with the other big players against a low block. First of all, thank you for your support. Much appreciated. Thank you for your super chat. Superstar, thank you. Boys, thoughts on the super chat? We need to give this some coverage because it's a very good point. Is he right? Should we have tried him? Dan's just made the point about we need to play him with Salah to see how that works out.
Yeah,
Dan and Aaron correct?
I would have liked to see it as well, to be absolutely honest, but it wasn't to be. The link up between Salah, Diaz, and Nunez is going to be interesting. I agree with you 100%, Steve. And to see how that pans out, it wouldn't surprise me if that does take a little bit of time to kind of gel. But you're right when you say that City, for example, play death by football, death by 1,000 cuts. It's I think someone in the chat also mentioned City's play is a lot more structured, whereas we rely a little bit more on chaos, and maybe that makes it easier. I don't know.
It does.
You can argue. Yeah, you can argue it in both ways, and I want to see as much of Nunez as possible because I'm excited to see him play first team football for Liverpool because I think he's capable of achieving really, really good things, and he's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised, for example, if he was our top scorer this season coming, and surpasses Salah because he's going to be taking a lot of those opportunities. I think Salah will still score goals. It's also a question mark, and I think it's fair to say that there is an unknown there. So let's see. I'm confident it can work out.
Shout out to Jay there. Nice message. Thanks, mate. I'm going to do this. Jay's a fellow Liverpool fan. He's just done a 30-minute or so documentary on Sami Hyypiä. If you've never seen any of Jay's short films,
superb.
Go and check him out because they're superb. They really are worth a watch. So big up to Jay for doing that, mate. You keep doing your magic stuff, mate. You're a superstar. And thanks for coming on and kind words for the three of us. We are very appreciative of that. I genuinely mean that. He is a superstar. Right, Dan, give me 90 seconds on pre-season before we go into a very brief look at the weekend's game without stealing the channel's thunder. Talk to me about the pre-season. How's it been for you? Good, bad, and indifferent?
That is a really difficult question to answer. Indifferent, I'd say. Obviously, never nice to lose to Manchester United, regardless of circumstances, regardless whether it's a coin toss or not, or whether it's 4-0 or not. But listen, it simply is what it is. It is pre-season. I mentioned it earlier when we were talking about this game we've just watched tonight. It's fitness related, and the game coming up on Saturday. In many aspects, people will take it seriously. Some will, some won't. For me, it's another part of pre-season. Then we've got Strasbourg on Sunday. Just getting minutes into legs, getting little connections going. What I really enjoy about pre-season is actually seeing the players we don't normally see. I've mentioned Mabaya earlier on tonight. I've been really impressed with him. So that excites me more than watching Thiago, Fabinho, Henderson. Like, I watch them 55 times a season as it is. I don't need to see them playing against Tranmere away in years gone by, or Salzburg for that matter. So it's been okay. We've got the minutes in I think we needed. I've been really pleased to see the likes of Carvalho come in and seem to settle so quickly. I think Rack's point earlier on about Harvey Ellis, a really salient one. I think he looks fit and hungry, and he looks like he's ready to come again like he did at the start of last season. And I think that's really exciting. A couple of disappointing notes that I won't go back over now. But yeah, overall, happy. But I'm much happier that it's pretty much over and we can finally get some competitive footy back under our belts.
Okay, that's a very, very quick synopsis of the pre-season without sort of, it's hard, isn't it? Because the Manchester United game was such a horrible place to start, wasn't it? Rack, similar question to you. You tell me your thoughts on what you think of pre-season and who's been the highlights and who again, Carvalho will be an answer, we'll all say. Aside from Carvalho, then, who else have you got your eye on for next season?
Not necessarily for next season, but I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but Bajicic, the young lad who plays in midfield. He looks really composed, and I don't necessarily think he's ready for first team football just yet. Probably just a the odd run out in Carabao Cup and stuff like that. But he's one to watch, and I didn't really know much about. I've heard his name banded about, but I don't really watch much academy football, so I didn't really know what to expect. But he just always seemed to have time on the ball and had a certain grace with the way that he plays, and that's why. And normally in academy football, there is a lot of chaos. There's a lot of not necessarily headless chickens, but the fact that he came into the man's game and looked like he'd settled well and had influence on the game. I'll certainly be keeping more of an eye on him. Overall pre-season, look, the Man United result was annoying. I remember when we beat them 4-0 in the US, and Shaqiri scored that overhead kick, and I was loving it. So they're probably loving it to some extent, beating us 4-0. But ultimately, these things matter little for over the course of the rest of the season. Fitness and honing our play and integrating our new players is the most important thing. And if anyone thinks we're going anywhere, they've got another thing coming, because we're going to be there or thereabouts.
Do you know what? I can't add to that. That's really well summarised, guys. I think you've both hit the nail on the head. Right, very quick round robin between the pair of you before we go, because we've kept these 243 people who are in the chat. So big up for you guys for staying for as long as you have. The community and the support we get in the channel on this relatively new channel, less than a year old. Approaching, I think it's either 14 or 15,000 subs, is really impressive. So thank you again, guys, for coming out and supporting the channel. Saturday, Rack, give me a team for Saturday.
Ali, I'm the standard back four with Matip, Fabinho, Harvey Elliott, Thiago. Fuck it. Nunes, Diaz, and Salah. Let's go full strength. Who cares?
Okay. In agreement, Dan? Any changes to that?
I've got concerns over Alisson, quite frankly. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I hope he's fit and available, obviously. I would pick him if he is. Otherwise, it's going to have to be Adrian by looks of it, isn't it? Because Kelleher's quite clearly not ready. And the two young keepers on the bench stayed on the bench today. So we might see Adrian. But I would be Matip as well over Khanage. Not because of anything particularly I've seen tonight. I just would be for now. I think Elliott's a really interesting shout. I was going to go with Henderson as opposed to that, but I'll be Fabinho and Thiago definitely alongside. And based on minutes tonight and just based on not quite being up to speed yet, like I said earlier, I'd be going with Firmino through the middle with Diaz and Salah.
So I'm kind of in agreement with both of you. I think it's a really good point, Alisson. This is still a friendly, even though there's a shield at the end of it. That one club not too far away from Liverpool will tell you is a major trophy because they're desperately clinging on to past glories. And we'll tell you, because you shared it once upon a time, you can't count it because you used to share it when you used to draw.
You just can't count it.
So that's the Community Shield put in its place, boys. If anyone needed me to do that, I've done it anyway.
Not to mention the fact that there were occasions in the past where it used to be competed between the Army and the Navy and certain other organisations.
And the amount of substitutes you can make is pretty much the end of the story. Like, it's just,
there you go. So now we've dashed its credibility. Is it worth carrying on? No, seriously. For me, I'm going to go. I think Adrian will play. I think you're right. I think it's more important to have Ali fit for Fulham than it is to have him fit for Saturday.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Klopp's too bothered about the result on Saturday. It's nice to have the stupid ticker tape falling on your head and hold the trophy up because it's a feel-good factor. But that's all it is. It won't make a difference to the season's preparation. The back four, I'm going to go with the same as you guys. It'll be Matip over Khanage for me and the usual suspects at fullbacks. In midfield, I think he's going to go with the tried and tested. I think he's going to go Henderson, Fabinho and Thiago because I can see more of a case for playing Harvey at Fulham because we can be more expansive at Fulham because that's a game where we should go and make a statement. You don't try and make statements against Manchester City. You have to be patient. And we need to find a way to try and negate their midfield a little bit and these angles that they create. And I think Henderson is a better organiser of that than Elliott is for obvious reasons. And then up front, I'm with you, Dan. I don't think Núñez starts the Charity Shield. I think he plays Bobby because Bobby will interfere with the space that Rodri wants to play in, or whoever plays in the six for City, whereas Núñez hasn't got that in his game. So, do you know what? We'll all be completely wrong because he does this to us time and time again. We sit here, we put these teams out, and then Saturday comes and the team goes up, and you go, "Do you know what? Why do we bother?" Because he just doesn't. He doesn't. We can't second guess him, can we?
Doesn't listen to us. Doesn't listen to us.
No, absolutely not. So, gents, thanks very much for joining. We've been an hour and 7 minutes. It's gone 11 o'clock. So what I'm going to do is just get you to tell us where we can find you because you're both good chaps to talk about what you're doing. And then we'll bid these guys in the chat farewell and thank them for their efforts this evening. The chat's been electric. The comments coming have been non-stop. LFC Aaron for your super chat. Thank you very, very much for your support. Really appreciate that. So, Rack, where can we find you? You're not still hanging out in Spaces till 4 a.m, are you?
No, like I said, this summer I had a bit of a kind of summer off. I was a bit footballed out, so I wasn't on Spaces as much, but yeah, I may have to go and slum it once the season gets started. So you can catch me on Twitter at Raxing1, and then on a few other channels I'll probably be on here a bit and Terrace and a couple of other places at Gal's channel and stuff. So I'll do the rounds.
Guys, seriously, Rack's an absolute gentleman. He's one of the nicest guys I know on here, and I don't say that because he's sat in front of me. I'd say it behind his back as well. He's a top bloke, so please go and give him a follow. He talks to you all about football. He's a really nice fella, so please go and do me a favour. There's 235 of you in here. I want to know that his followers have gone up by 235 next time I speak to him. And last, definitely not least, Dan, where can we find you and what have you been up to?
Yeah, Dan_club on Twitter. I've similar to Rack actually in many ways. I've had somewhat of a summer off from football, a little bit Tired, exhausted, all of the above from last season, quite frankly. But yeah, cricket, as you know, Steve, takes precedent for me in the summer anyway. So that's been keeping me more than occupied. But I'm back now because the Reds are back in semi-competitive action, let's say, on the weekend. So this is my first podcast back into the new season. So ready to go again. But yeah, find me on Twitter. Find me every now and then on Redmen, including on Sunday reviews, Steve. But yeah, let's do it all over again, Reds. Let's enjoy it.
Likewise, guys.
Right.
Dan's a writer as well, and he writes some really good stuff. And he's on a number of different channels as well. He's a well sought after guy, and he speaks well and writes well about football. So I'll take your fivers at the end, boys. Don't worry. So I'm picking these guys up because they deserve it, and they deserve your follows. And as I say, Dan's a writer, so he writes some really good stuff for other channels and other websites. So thanks all of you. They're dropping out now. It's 207 of you left. You've been absolute legends. It's 11:15 pretty much. Thanks for 75 minutes of your time. And as the host, thanks Rack and thanks Dan for joining me this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you as ever, Dan. And it'll be a pleasure to catch up with you again, Rack, because it's probably been 6 months. That will never happen again, my friend. That's wrong. We won't do that again. No, definitely not, mate. All right, guys. Everyone in the chat, thanks again. We're out of here. Good luck to Liverpool on Saturday. Keep an eye on the channel for what's coming this week. I'm sure there'll be plenty of activity around the Charity Shield. And if he's listening and he hasn't succumbed to sleep, big up to Grizz for making this channel happen. And the community is absolutely superb. So catch you later, guys.